So I work at a 24-hour contact center on the shift team. Most of the call center works 9 to 5 hours, but there's a small team of us here for the after hours. The nature of the call center is that people call for interpreters and we set up the conference. At night, most of the calls we get are from emergency services, but it could really be about anything. We never know what's waiting on the other line, and us shifties have to deal with a lot of strange stuff. But nothing has made my skin crawl more than this one caller that started calling about a month ago. We get the occasional prank call or even a lewd caller, so I can't really pin down the exact time this guy started calling. About a month ago, I got a call that went like this, and I kind of suspect it might have been him, but I'm not 100% sure. So let's just say even if it wasn't him, I don't really want to meet this person either. Welcome, this is Belle. How can I help? Hello, is anyone on the line? Hello? What language? Poo-poo. Thinking I hadn't heard that correctly, I said, sorry, was that posh too? No. Where is the language from? Spain. No, I'm pretty sure they speak Spanish in Spain. I'm gonna put my dick between your tits and come in your face. I was shocked and laughing, and I hang up the phone, and that was that. The first of its kind that has haunted our shift team for the last month. Another girl on the team hung up on a call quite panicked about 2 weeks ago. I heard a lot of the call just on her end, but she was calmly explaining the way our service worked to someone, just saying that we accept calls from non-English speakers, as well as agencies, and we can put the callers through to a lot of companies as long as they accept our calls and our clients. And then she just stopped talking and said, "Guys, this guy just got really crazy on the phone. I'm really shaken up." She didn't want to repeat what he had said, but after I told her about my call with the last dude, she said it was pretty similar to that. The next one I wasn't there for, so I don't have the best details of exactly what was said or anything. But I was given the rundown of a girl I work with, so I'll try my best to explain this one because this is where it starts getting really freaky. So this girl in my team stayed back to hang out with the reliving shift. We were on the evening shift and they were on the graveyard. She said at around 3 a.m. this guy started calling and asking for Vietnamese. They would get the interpreter and then a woman would come on the line speaking Spanish. So they would disconnect the call with him. He kept calling, so they started to ignore his request for an interpreter, but then things started getting strange. He started saying some rude stuff and they would hear the keys of his phone being pressed. So they kept him on the line and started to trace the calls. But then they realized he was transferring the call or conferencing in another call or something. The phone started ringing like the sound when you call out to someone, and then someone answered on the other line. "Hello, 911, what's your emergency?" The really strange thing about this is that we are not in the USA, not even close to the USA. It's kind of hard to make conference calls if you don't know how. It's also kind of hard to find an international number for 911. Normally, if you try to dial 911, it redirects you to the country you are in's emergency services. So we have no idea how he was doing it, but the guy was kind of putting on a voice, so it's hard to tell if he's American. Although a detail that happens later makes me think he is American, he never stayed on the line to finish the call trace. So the girls at work ended up saying sorry and explaining the situation to the 911 operator. They were as freaked out about it as we were, but the conference didn't collapse. If the caller who made the conference hangs up, then the conference would collapse. So this guy just stayed on the line listening to these people from 2 different countries try and work out why they were speaking to each other. Other calls that night I've been told about was one where they heard a bomb countdown timer. They weren't sure if it was live or if it was a recording, but it sounded like 10 seconds until detonation, and then started counting down. It never finished the countdown, the call just cut out before. He also called a police station in America and conferenced us into them and then just hung on the line not saying anything. But I'm not sure on the details of that one, so I'll just leave it. A few days later, we started our night shift rotation. What I'm about to explain only happened 2 nights ago, so it's still pretty fresh in my brain. At about 4 a.m., the girl I work with yells out, "Oh, it's the dickhead again," and then puts the phone on speaker so we can all hear it. What I heard on the other line made my eyes water and my skin crawl. In the most horrible voice, deep and rusty and almost like a whisper coming out of the speaker, was this horrible voice mixed with horrible words.
"I'm going to kill you."
Everyone froze. This was pretty creepy, even for us. Then immediately he transferred to another line. This time he didn't stay quiet. An American man answered the phone, and let me just throw in there that he had a really awesome manner and accent. Their conversation went like this.
"Hello? Hi, I'm just calling in relation to an Xbox you put on Craigslist."
"Oh yeah, it comes with 2 controllers and some games."
"I'm going to stick my dick up your ass."
"Excuse me, what did you just say?"
"Oh yeah, I'm gonna get my dick and rub it all over your face. Do you like that?"
"Dear Lord, why did you say that? That's disgusting." And then the call cut out. I was next in line for a call, so my teammate warned me, and as soon as the last word left her lips, my phone rang. "Welcome, how can I help you?"
"Oh yeah, what's your name? I want you to help with something. What's your name?"
"My name is Mel."
"Can you fuck me, please? Come here and fuck me. Fuck you. I'm gonna kill you."
At this point, I put it on speaker. I was supposed to mute it, but I'm not sure if I did because I was trying to figure out how to call trace and said, "How do you call trace?" And then he hung up. And that's the most recent thing he's done. If he calls again, I'll make a video or something because I want to show you this guy's voice. It's so creepy. But also I left out which country I'm from because I'm not really supposed to put that stuff online about where I work. They're pretty strict about it, and I've heard of some people being fired. So I left out all the details of the company name and country I'm from, although it's probably easy to work out. Any minute now he could call again, and my heart jumps every time the phone rings. But I hope he doesn't call back again. I used to work at a call center that handled the customer service calls for a very popular makeup brand. The department was made up of 40 women and maybe 3 men. We would occasionally get immature, flirty calls that were obvious and dismissed quickly. Overall, getting calls from males was rare. One day I got a call from a man who wanted to know more about makeup. He said he had lost a bet with his friends and had to wear a full face of makeup for a week. He was completely normal sounding, even charming. I looked forward to these calls to break up my day, so I didn't really think much of it. I went through the website with him, going through each category in depth application. He said he was writing everything down. I spent almost 2 hours on the phone with him and felt like it was a positive interaction. A few days later at lunch, I overheard managers discussing a man who calls in saying he lost a bet and needs makeup advice. He had been calling in for years. In the beginning, it was obvious what he was doing, loudly masturbating to the women's voices. Even though his story stayed the same for years, he obviously got better at disguising his intentions. It was much more graphic in the first phone calls. Needless to say, I was very disturbed that I had been talking to this man for hours and had no idea anything was off. People who are this good at hiding things are some of the most terrifying to me. I started working at a call center around the middle of November. I was really excited to be making more money, and I was even more excited to wear normal clothes and not a uniform. My first few weeks were just training, and once or twice a week you could meet with a team and supervisor. I chose the 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. shift. Training was 6 weeks long, and I was nearing the last 2 weeks of training when I got a friend request from someone I didn't know. Upon further investigation, I saw that he worked at the call center as well, but I still had no idea who he was, or how he knew me or my name. After I approved the request, I got a message from him. He explained that he was on my team and found out my name from a girl on the team who used to go to middle school with me. I have one of those really distinct faces, I guess. I always give people the benefit of the doubt purely just because I've been judged a lot on what I look like, so I want to give everyone a chance before I shut them out. I will definitely think twice about that though. He messaged me constantly, and if I didn't reply, he would send multiple messages in a row. I got messages almost every hour from really random things about his dog or about how pretty he thought I was. I tried to ignore them and just keep the conversation down, being kind of passive and aloof. He would send me emails at work if I didn't check my phone to text back. I sat across from him diagonally and would always catch him staring at me. I told my supervisor about it and she spoke to him once and he apologized and gave me a lot of candy the following days. I didn't eat any of it. One week he had scheduled PTO and wasn't going to be there for at least a week. I was super happy about that until he was in the cafeteria waiting. I asked him what he was doing and he said he just wanted to talk to me face to face, that he valued my friendship and that he didn't want to lose me over a misunderstanding. Why would you want to come into work when you scheduled PTO? Whatever, I just brushed it off. I talked to my supervisor again and they moved him to a different spot, but he still sent me emails and found reasons to walk by my desk. I ended up deleting him off my Facebook when he called me 11 times and sent me 23 text messages in a row. After that, a day or so later, he messaged me asking me why we weren't friends anymore, and that I shouldn't do anything to stir up drama in the workplace. I had my boyfriend talk to him, and after that, I didn't hear from him again. I decided to leave the call center because, to be honest, the job sucked and he was becoming a big annoyance, and having the supervisor talk to him wasn't helping. I was sitting in my living room one night with my boyfriend and roommate, and 2 police officers asked to speak with me. They said someone from my work was concerned about me and they felt it was important to do a checkup on me. They didn't say who it was, but I called in and asked my supervisor about it. She told me it wasn't her or the other team lead, and I told her who I thought it was, and that I would be leaving because of it. I'm still super paranoid about it and the fact that he would go as far as calling the police. I don't even know how he knew where I lived. So I work at a domestic violence hotline. It is a relatively small and local hotline, nothing serious. Maybe 3 to 5 calls on a busy 8-hour shift. We usually only answer calls from within our county, but we do get a couple of calls here and there from other states. So the person I'm going to tell you about is a repeated caller. He goes by Jim, John, Joseph, George, Gregory, and Jonathan. So the ladies that run the hotline call the man Joseph because that is the name he most frequently uses for me. So at the hotline that I work, I do sporadic shifts. Sometimes overnight, sometimes early morning, sometimes afternoon into the evening, and different days of the week. Basically, I fill in whenever someone doesn't want to work, which is fairly often. This guy started calling a couple months ago. No caller ID and no address that he knows, and he doesn't even know his own telephone number. We answer the phone the same way every time. "Thank you for calling the crisis hotline. My name is... How can I help you?" And you would know it was Joseph calling because you would hear a grown man talking in a child's voice on the other end asking, "And who am I speaking with?" From there, you had to give him your name again and he would say, "And how are you?" I would usually say I'm doing fine and how about you? To which he would reply, "Not good. Can I talk to you?" "Sure, what's going on?" "Well, my parents are downstairs fighting." "Are you in a safe place?" "Yeah, I'm upstairs in my room. The police are on their way." "Oh yeah? Did the 911 dispatcher ask you to stay on the line?" "No, I called my aunt and she called the police for me. They're on the way. Is it okay if we talk?" "That's fine, go ahead. What would you like to talk about?" "Well, my parents are downstairs fighting. Do you know what they're fighting about?" "Well, it could be any number of things. Why don't you tell me?" "Guess." Now, the conversation seems pretty normal up until this point. Keep in mind, he is roughly a 35-year-old man talking in a baby voice, and this call happens multiple times a day throughout everyone's shift. Please, Joseph, just tell me what they're fighting about. Well, my dad came home late and my mom had made dinner, but my dad didn't like what she made. Guess what happened then? I really don't like to guess, just please tell me. Well, he threw the plate and I heard it smash against the wall. Guess what happened then? Please tell me, I don't like to guess. Well, then my mom told me to go upstairs because they're gonna get into it. What do you think that means? That could mean a number of things. Are they yelling at each other? Yeah, my dad is really getting into my mom. What do you think that means? I don't know. Usually sometime around this point, Joseph will quickly cut off the conversation and say, I have to go, I'll call you back. Now, I found that when I try to offer resources, which is what our hotline is mainly for, he generally gets frustrated and says he has to go sooner, leaving me with more time to answer calls that are higher priority and do other work around the call center. My coworkers and I have started an email chain, and one of my coworkers, Flo, works overnight and has talked to him extensively. She says that he sounds mentally ill and that she's been discussing coping mechanisms with him. She states that she has never encountered anything malicious, and whenever she stated that she is uncomfortable, he backs off. I take what she says to heart and begin to believe that Joseph is not terribly harmful or out to bother us. He genuinely wants help. So the next time he calls, I clear up my work and begin to talk to him more in depth. He goes over his usual story. His parents are fighting, his dad threw the plate at his mom, it smashed against the wall, and once again I ask if his mom is safe. He states that yes, she is. This is an agreement that she has with his dad. At this point, I'm very confused because Flo hasn't mentioned anything like this. It's usually just aggressive fights, and occasionally Joseph hears his parents having sex, which Flo tends to steer clear of. I ask, what do you mean they have an agreement? Well, my mom agreed to fight with my dad because it gets him turned on. What do you think that means? Sometimes people consensually agree to do things. Do you think they're doing this safely? Yeah, after my dad yelled at my mom, he ripped off her clothes. Guess what she was wearing? Hoping for the best, I said, sweatpants? No, it was like silky material. And guess what she was wearing underneath? Joseph, I'm beginning to get uncomfortable. Can you either tell me or change the subject? After much resistance, Joseph continued to tell me the story of how his mother was wearing lace underwear, because his dad ripped it off of her as she was coming downstairs while they were kissing, and then his dad went on top of his mom because they were in front of his bedroom door, and they were naked having sex and kissing. Apparently Joseph's girlfriend was there with him and this turned her on. He then asked me how he knew she was turned on. Well, sometimes certain things make people sexually excited. Maybe this is a conversation you should have with her alone. Well, she told me that she was wet. What do you think that means? Well, as I said, sometimes certain things make people sexually excited. You should probably talk to her about this in a safer environment. Is there any way you can get out of the house, or maybe give me your address so I can call 911 for you? I'm obviously uncomfortable at this point, and Joseph is not backing down. He continues to graphically describe what he sees under his door and how his girlfriend was touching him while it was happening. And now his girlfriend wants to come over and make the same agreement that his parents have, to fight and then have sex. After about 45 minutes in total being on the phone with Joseph, I can finally call the hotline from my phone to make it ring. I inform Joseph that there is another call coming in and I have to answer it. I'm glad that he is in a safe place, but I need to answer this call. Needless to say that as soon as I end the call with him, I stop my call from coming in and I continue on my daily work. The creepy thing may not necessarily be that he was saying all that. I mean, after working at a domestic violence hotline for a few years, you hear a lot of terrible stories, so this doesn't really faze me. It's that now Joseph knows my name, where I work, and he has all of our schedules memorized. He specifically calls during certain people's shifts to talk to them. Whenever I cover Flo's overnight shifts, I always get at least 3 calls from him. If I cover another friendly coworker shift, he'll call. He doesn't call the daytime shifts often because they're usually very busy with other work and are unable to entertain him. I have since stopped using my name on unmarked calls. I will direct Joseph to services when he calls in order to shorten our conversations. The weirdest part is I am the only one that has had Joseph go all creepy sexual on them. None of the other ladies that I work with has had Joseph get pervy. He's been nice and respected their boundaries. I don't know what I did to deserve that 45 minutes of baby talk pervertedness, but needless to say, no one at the hotline talks to Joseph anymore. This is a compilation of stories from different employees working in the call center where I used to work. Our office was located in a building that was converted from a warehouse to a 2-story office building situated in Cebu City, Philippines. I was at first skeptical about ghosts, but I'm now a believer. After all the stories and first-hand experiences, I now believe that the office is haunted. They said that when the area was still a warehouse, there was a family who lived there, where the mother and her daughter were brutally killed by her husband, who later committed suicide. It was 12 noon and I was still taking calls when I saw a reflection of a little girl on my computer monitor wearing a Sunday dress pass behind me. When I turned to look, no one was there. Then days after, I heard that one of my male office mates was in the men's room when he saw the door through the mirror adjacent to the john slowly open. When he looked back, he saw a little girl sitting on the toilet bowl. He looked back facing the wall and closed his eyes and prayed the Lord's Prayer, Our Father. When he opened his eyes, he saw the little girl sitting in the wall urinal in front of him, reciting the prayer with him. He screamed to death running out of the men's room. I also had an experience when I was sleeping under my workstation that somebody choked me in my dreams while I was asleep. When I woke up, I saw my hands reaching out to my coworker's foot as what I had in my dream. We have colleagues who can see the unseen. One time my coworker who had an open third eye saw one of our coworkers who was taking calls in the corner of the office, under the wall-mounted split-type air conditioner with a man who she can only see. He was hanging from the air conditioner where his neck was tied with a rope. Apparently this hanging man was staring at the girl below him with his foot touching her head. One incident was when 2 of my coworkers snuck in the training office. It was Sunday and there was no trainers there during Sundays. The 2 guys connected the chairs for them to lie down. One guy decided to go out since he was not comfortable with the area while the other guy decided to sleep. The guy who stayed didn't realize that his friend went out. When he called out to ask him to wake up around 4 a.m., a little girl's voice answered him. Yes, no problem. He got up and ran outside where he found his friend on his workstation. They went back to the room together and found no one. There's also incidents in the ladies' room where they can hear a woman crying, singing, or even calling out their first names. People who are in training can hear whispers. Some can see faces reflected in their computer monitors. One of the managers has ashes on her workstation even if she already cleaned the area the day before. She was told by her seatmate who has a third eye that she can see a burnt man who keeps visiting her workstation. The haunting kept on going for the next 3 years of our stay in that location. Fortunately, our company transferred to another location where we finally have our own building. Some of the employees claim they can still see the little girl. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know the last couple of videos I've done have been kinda short, but that's just because these last couple of topics haven't had a whole lot of stories. My next few videos are definitely going to be much longer, and hopefully you'll enjoy them. Starting this week, I'm trying to work daily on videos, so I have a lot of stuff coming soon. So be patient and get ready, because I'm about to crank out a lot of content. Until the next video, which should be in a couple days, remember, stay on.